Hello, everybody. My name is Forrest Stevens. I'm the founder and CEO of Different Media. The interview that you're about to see was an interview I originally shot for the feature-length documentary called The Legal and Underground Scene of Magic Mushrooms. I decided to go a very specific route, which is what happens sometimes in documentary filmmaking. You need to follow sort of a single thread occasionally. My original idea for the film was to go a little broader in the scene of magic mushrooms. I decided to go a little deeper in one direction, which left these interviews and this interview that you're going to see kind of left over. But equally, I find that this interview is as important as the ones that did make it into the film, and that's why I wanted to release these as well. I think that they offer a lot of value and a lot of insights and are very informative. So that's the interview you're about to see right now. It is originally shot for a feature film. If you wanted to see that feature film, you can do so by clicking the links in the description. One final note, the subject matter of this interview might be disturbing to some, and it talks about substances that might be illegal. None of it is medical advice, of course, and it is just for general informational purposes and entertainment only.
I'm Kai. I'm 24 and I'm in grad school right now, just finishing up my degree in counseling with the goal of eventually becoming a psychedelic assisted psychotherapist. So that's the goal eventually, is to work as a therapist with psychedelics. And yeah, living in Vancouver, also making music, DJing, and yeah, I guess that's me. I had a lot of experiences with psychedelics when I was younger that really opened my eyes to the different layers of reality, and I went to therapy in high school, and that opened my eyes to the powers of therapy and exploring the self and growth. And then as the field of psychedelic therapy started growing, I was interested in the combination between the two. And I know that with typical talk therapy, oftentimes it can be very slow change. And with something like psychedelics that really rocks a person, and the sense of self, there can be a lot of change and a lot of growth quite fast, which can be dangerous, but also really healing in a lot of ways. And so, yeah, I find it an interesting field, and it's yeah, something that I would like to be a part of. So I think today I wanted to tell you about one in particular, but I've had many experiences, and I started pretty young, like in grade 9, when I was probably 14. I had my first mushrooms trip with a friend, and it was interesting. And I had about 10 experiences with mushrooms and LSD that were really interesting. I didn't really know what to make of them. I was just doing it to have fun and explore with friends, and we would go places and not really know where we were or what we were experiencing, and come back and have no way of integrating what we just saw. We were young and just having fun. And then I had 3 experiences back to back when I was about 16 that shook me to my core, and they were so profound and powerful that I think about them every day. They were some of the most impactful experiences I've ever had in my life. And they were quite negative in a sense, but also maybe positive in some ways. So maybe I'll share one experience in particular. Well, I guess it was a mushroom trip with 2 of my friends. It started like most mushroom trips start, getting weird, and we're playing video games and we're having fun and things are moving, and all of a sudden I'm laying there with my 2 friends, and I shoot out of my body and I float through the roof towards the sky, and I felt a female presence saying, "I'm going to show you some stuff now." And I was like, "No, I can't. I'm with my friends. I can't do this right now." It was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd rather not." And it was like, "Okay." And so I went back to my body. And after that, things started to change. My friends went upstairs, left me alone, and it was like I blacked out, and I woke up in a dream. That's how it felt. And you know how in a dream you just know certain things to be true without being told them? Same as with psychosis, right? So I knew for a fact that I was dead. So I woke up and I was dead. and I was my soul in hell. And my real self, my real body was in the hospital, overdosed on heroin. I've never done heroin, but this is what I felt. And I was my soul in hell, dead. And my phone spoke up and said, "You have 5 seconds to get upstairs before you're dead forever." So I run upstairs and I go to my friends and I said, "I'm dead." And they were like, "What? No, you're alive." I was like, "I'm dead." And my phone said, "If you would like to move on to the afterlife, press 1. If you'd like to start a new life as someone else, press 2. Or if you'd like to continue your life as yourself, as Kai, press 3. So I pressed 3. I said, "I want to be Kai. I want to come alive, please." So it said, "Okay, this is what you have to do. You have to have sex right now." I was like, wow, okay. So I'm thinking to myself, who am I going to have sex with? There's only one female in the whole house. It was my friend's mom. So I went back downstairs and I was like, all right, I told my friend I have to wake up your parents. And he said, "Why?" I said, "I need to have sex." And he said, "Who are you going to have sex with?" And I said, "Your mom." And he was like, "No, you're not." I said, "I have to. I'm dead." And then I realized my friend was the devil. And so I was like, okay. So I threw him to the ground, running upstairs, sprinting full speed, get to his parents' room, open the door. I said, I'm dead and I need to have sex. And my friends come in after me and they're like, "We're just on mushrooms." And his parents were very nice about it, but in my mind, they were saying things that they weren't actually saying. So his mom was like, "It's okay, it's going to be fine." And I said, "This is so messed up, but we need to have sex because I think I'm dead." And in my mind, she said, "Okay, let's have sex, take your clothes off." So I took my clothes off and I got into their bed and everything. So it was very strange because, they would say one thing and I would hear another. And no matter what a person said to me, it just fit into this whole idea of what I thought was going on. Um, and there's nothing anyone could have said in that moment to change my mind about what I understood. So in that sense, to me, it was like psychosis, where you just believe things to be true and you make these connections that aren't quite there. And it was not like any other mushroom experience that I've had. It felt different. It was like my brain, it felt like my brain just snapped under the pressure of everything. And it was like woke up into like insanity where I just believed I was dead. And they managed to kind of calm me down, but I remember feeling my body in the real world, overdosed on heroin in the hospital, and the nurses were putting needles in my arms. And then at one point, the nurse said to me, "Hey Kai, are you there? If you're awake, just pee." So I pulled down my pants and I peed all over his mattress. And so, I'm lucky to have a friend like that who was supportive, and his parents. I mean, it could have gone a lot worse. They really handled the situation well, but it was very strange. And I woke up the next morning sober, um, but it felt so real that I couldn't believe that it didn't happen. I thought I actually died. So I was trying to wrap my head around, how did I die? And it took me probably like a week to fully believe that it was just the mushrooms, because it was so real. And I've had 3 experiences like that, of the themes of being dead, and often with themes of sex, which is, it's strange. I don't know if there's a meaning there between death and sex and life, needing to have sex to come back to life. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about, is there a meaning to that, and what I could take from that. And one thing that I found really interesting was the fact that my real body was overdosed on heroin. I've never done heroin, but I was on a path towards addiction. And a couple years later, it got pretty bad, and I was pretty deep in addiction, not with heroin, luckily, but other things. And it took me quite a while to get through that. I went to rehab, and so I'm thinking, if I wanted to make meaning out of an experience like that, well, maybe the mushrooms were trying to tell me that if I continue down this path, I'll die. Maybe. Or maybe it's just that you do enough psychedelics and your brain's not ready for it. It induces some psychotic like state. But I found that the themes of death being so integral to all those experiences were really interesting. Yeah. So it was pretty traumatic thinking that you're dead and in hell, but I've been trying to integrate and make meaning from those experiences as I've gotten older.
Do you think that was
like a, I mean, you used kind of the word psychosis a little bit. Do you think that was like a temporary psychosis induced by the mushrooms, or?
You might call it that. I mean, it fits the criteria, I would say. These beliefs that are definitely not true, but are so strongly held, right? Like it's very similar to like someone who is in a state of psychosis. I guess you could call it a state of psychosis, right? Um, and what scares me about that is that if the message had been, rather than having sex, had been you have to die to wake up, well, it was so believable, I would have done it, right? And nobody could have convinced me otherwise. I would have grabbed a knife and stabbed myself. So, you know, yeah, I think psychedelics are safe. But then when I think about a state like that, it's not safe. It was pretty dangerous. It could have been a lot worse. Um, and that's a fear for me in going back there. I want to go back and learn. I'm so scared. Yeah.
So why do you think, do you have any thoughts on why that happened to you because of psilocybin mushrooms?
That's such a great question. I've asked myself that too because I know so many people who have done a lot of mushrooms and not had experiences like that. But I have heard of people having similar experiences like that. So when I think about myself, yeah, I don't know. What would I say? Trauma related things, maybe, maybe not. Just a sensitive person that's sensitive to experiences and also sensitive to substances. I tend to get pretty high whenever I take a drug, so it could just be that I metabolize drugs stronger. But I don't, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like why me and why could someone else do tons and never have an experience like that? And I had a lot of experiences before that that were not like that, but these were pretty high dose experiences. I mean, we're talking like 3.5 grams of like strong mushrooms, so pretty decent sized dose.
I mean, there's kind of the whole brain chemistry side of it, but like you said, you had experiences that weren't like that, so there's, I don't know, but do you think like the idea of like set and setting that everybody talks about being so important, do you think that played into these three experiences that you had?
Probably in some sense. I mean, setting wise, it wasn't a bad setting to be in. Um, could have been, I mean, I've done mushrooms in worse places. I know people who do them at concerts and just out in public. I've done acid in, the downtown Vancouver, which was interesting. So, setting wise, it wasn't bad, but I didn't have a guide. I didn't have, a professional. And set wise, it's hard to say. I don't really know what was going on in my head at that age, but I definitely had some things going on. I was dealing with some stuff from my childhood, and I was at a weird age with a lot of weird experiences and definitely dealing with a lot of anxiety for sure. So, set wise, probably could have influenced it. And sometimes you don't even really know what's going on underneath the surface, right? You can say, I think I'm in a good place, and then you do a psychedelic, and it's like, no, you're not.
It's really interesting to me to hear these kind of very traumatic experiences that you had, and that you're now interested in going back there, but kind of through this realm of psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. It almost seems like people having those experiences would go the other way, like say like, okay, this isn't good.
Right.
What is bringing you back to that in this other way?
Right. Well, I think I've seen the other side of psychedelics. I know about their potential just through research and through talking to people and through, positive experiences that I've had. And I know that even the negative experiences, well, we might call them negative or challenging, are something that can be worked through for a person's benefit. So I think while I have had a lot of traumatic experiences myself, I've also had some really profound experiences on psychedelics of being in touch with these inner parts of myself, having direct conversations with my inner child and interacting with it and seeing how I felt towards it. And also I'm currently doing research in the field of psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, and so I'm learning a lot about its potential. And so yeah, I've always found that, well, I always knew I wanted to be a therapist, and then realizing that this is such a new and emerging field with so much potential, and the research on it is just, it's pretty amazing. So I think having had these negative experiences, it can almost be a benefit to me to know the importance of doing it with the right intention and the right setting, right? How would this experience have been different for me if I had gone into it with the right intention and with the right tools to deal with this stuff? I mean, one thing I did was I fought a lot of the experience, right? I fought the out of body experience, and I probably fought the feelings of anxiety. And one of the biggest things they teach you with the field of psychedelic therapy is to surrender to the experience. So if I had these tools and had the right guidance, would I have had a different experience? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've felt with psychedelic experiences I've had is you're going to have the experience whether you fight it or not, but the experience is just going to shift because it has to come out, it has to present itself. And like when you accept it, it's just like, okay, now I can have fun, I can enjoy it, I can experience, um, I can be open to the experience. But when you fight it, like it's almost like trauma or negative thought or anything like that, the more you force it down, you're not actually getting rid of it. It's still there. It's just going to come out in a different way, subconsciously or whatever.
Right. Yeah. And that whole idea ties a lot into a lot of the work that I do now as a therapist in training. I work a lot with a type of therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy, which is a mindfulness-based therapy. It's somewhat like CBT, but more mindfulness and acceptance. So it's not about changing or fighting your experiences. It's about accepting and allowing them, and realizing that a lot of the suffering we have comes from the struggle that we have with our thoughts, which ties a lot into the work that I've been doing with meditation and mindfulness. And I think that can be such a powerful tool in life in general, but definitely when it comes to moving through any challenging experience.
Right now, we are in a weird space globally with magic mushrooms. Although there are many places where they're outright legal or decriminalized, like Brazil, Portugal, and many areas of the US, like Denver, DC, Seattle, and Oregon. One of the messiest battlefields of psilocybin law reform is my home nation of Canada. Psychedelic mushrooms are technically illegal, but try telling the police that, with new magic mushroom dispensaries popping up all the time in major cities. Plus, if you don't want to go out to buy your mushrooms, just get Canada Post to deliver them to your door. Magic mushrooms in Canada are available medically, but it seems like you almost need to be dying to get access to them. There's even publicly traded companies that have their profits tied up in some way with magic mushrooms. To me, it seems like magic mushrooms are at a similar place to where we were in 2018 when Canada legalized cannabis. I decided to look into this more and talk to two people who have been battling for psilocybin drug reform, one doing it above the board with Health Canada, and one doing it through active civil disobedience.